Hello, welcome to CafeSoCo. My name's Dan Gold. Joining me today in New Zealand is Chris Flack. He's in Christchurch, of all places. And I say that because when I went to school in Dorset, went to a school in the other Christchurch, not the one in New Zealand. Chris, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you, Dan. It's Sunday morning over in New Zealand, and it looks like it's going to be a nice day.
Currently, it's a lovely day here. It's still Saturday, which is still quite mind-boggling, you time-traveling superstar. Today's blab is about, as you can see on the title, how to use graphic design to create identity, but that's kind of only part of it, because I think most people know what a graphic designer does. But there's this trend at the moment to talk about visual communicators. Now, Chris, sort me out with this one. Is it just people trying to be trendy? They're still graphic designers, or are they doing the same work but on a different basis?
So I think you're talking about the difference between visual communication and graphic design, or designers. It's really the same thing. It just, the idea is that it covers off everything else. So the traditional graphic designer mainly works in print, which is everything from annual reports to newspaper ads. Whereas now we've got social media, we've got things like podcasts, websites, responsive websites. So it's growing a lot. There's the PR side. So traditional graphic designers have evolved, and now they are visual communicators, for use of a better word, really.
How has design changed? Because, I mean, going back to when you first got into the work itself, has it become this more we talk in communications terms of mobile first, so we're taking account of having smaller screens, having a better impact on something that's shrunk down, not having lots of words on things that they're impossible to read. From a design point of view, where does it start from kind of a consultation stage?
So, I mean, I guess design's still the same. Like, the principle's still the same. You've still got to communicate. It's just now there are many, many ways to communicate. So, as you said, like, there's mobile devices, which 5 years ago, none of us, we didn't have to design an ad that worked on an iPhone, a Samsung, whereas now we do. So suddenly you're thinking, when you're starting at the design process, how can I simplify whatever that message is down to 140 characters, or a 7-second loop on Instagram, or a soundbite on Blab. So it's trickier, but then again, the young designers, so your kind of 18-year-olds to 22-year-olds, something like that, they're used to it. There's no difference for them. But when you're like mid-30s like me, sometimes you feel like you're trying to keep up with the younger ones in terms of, the Snapchats and things like that as well.
And that's really an interesting thing from when I'm talking to clients about how they consider using design as a part of the product, rather than just the traditional getting a layout done. It's how is that going to translate to this next generation? I hate to divide it into baby boomers and Gen X or millennials. The fact is that the numbers are in the marketplace now. It's 50-50, and it's only going to lean more and more towards Gen X millennials. So we really are at the kind of the tipping point to tip over on that one. Eric, thank you very much for finding this blab. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you're interested in this one. If you've got any questions for Chris, please do let me know. Let's go back to the beginning. When we talk about the ed process, when we're learning our trade, when we're in school or college or at uni, how do you think that the schools have got better at accounting for modern platforms to help the younger designers, or is it kind of native to them? And how are us older people, I can't believe we're saying older people, how are we catch up with them?
Well, to be honest, I don't think the schools have got any better. They're their fundamental job as a design educator is to teach design principles. So that's like, say, the basis, the foundation for design. But what you do have is, as we said before, the younger people, or the 16, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds who are starting in design education, they've already been playing on iPads, iPhones. They now cut videos at school when they're, I know 7-year-olds, and that's probably old, which are cutting videos on iPads at school. So straight away, they're used to doing it, and the people teaching them, a lot of them are kind of 40 plus in terms of age. So they're generally designers who have designed the industry for a while, and then they thought, hey, I'm going to give something back and go more into education route. So they're not as native with the younger up-and-coming technology as the young people are. So their job is to teach the principles, and then the young designer just takes those principles and applies them to the technology. So I know that, the young guys we have at Strategy in Christchurch, like the stuff they can do, even with HTML5, just on a little animated advert. I've got no idea how to do it, but I don't need to know how to do it, as I can teach them the design side of it. So that's the key, is that the young people learn faster, and it's already native to them. So really the bigger challenge is for the slightly older ones, if you will, to be able to keep up, or at least understand that technology enough to ensure they can guide and direct the young designers in the right way to make sure they're actually designing it correctly. Does that answer the question?
Yeah,
or?
It certainly does. And that brings me on to a question relating to that. Do you ever get to the point where you're trying to communicate to a client about an opportunity through a modern platform, and they go, no, we can't see the point in this. We can't see how it's going to work for us. How do you communicate to your clients that, hold on, this could really get results for you?
Oh, gee. It's quite a hard one. So, there's big differences in New Zealand versus London, and even probably versus Canada. There's 4 million people here. Our social media uptake's pretty high, but even convincing a local accountancy firm or a local kind of business incubator, to use LinkedIn more, which I see LinkedIn as the go-to for just business networking. They still see social media as a risk, as where's the value output, like what's my return on investment? And a lot of times you don't get an actual return on investment for a while. It's more about putting those business people in the right situation so they can create more business and meet more people. It's like us, we know each other from working together, but if we didn't, you would have reached out via LinkedIn, I presume, or even Twitter. And if you're not working in that space, like if you've not put your brand in that space, or if you have but you're not replying to those emails that are coming through, then it's kind of pointless. So I think this goes back to brand strategy, and it's like you need to build a good foundation for the brand, even if it's a small brand, which is a lot more of the type of work we do in New Zealand. And then you need to put it in the right places that people can see it. So I think it's quite simple, but there's a lot more of an education thing in New Zealand around what is the value of being on LinkedIn, why should you be on Facebook, or why not? And then obviously Twitter as well. Do you just tweet and hope people see it, which isn't really the way to go. You need to form relationships. So there's a whole digital strategy there, which then ties into the brand side, and then that's when you get graphic designers or visual communicators or thinkers involved to actually position that brand in the right place.
When we look at visual communications and consistency across either multiple platforms or printed materials or cards, or when someone's doing a presentation, how many times I've been to see presentations and I go and see these amazing websites and I think, I want to see this presentation from this guy. And then you go and see a really ropey PowerPoint that has no consistency with the beautiful work that they're doing. And there's something lost there. I would definitely advise people, I'm sure you would as someone in your role, to say, look, if you are going to be presenting to people who could be part of a tribe or people that you're going to influence or potentially clients, make sure that design is absolutely consistent. And if it's something that you have to outsource, it's better to do that than to use one of the pre-made templates in PowerPoint, which I think is probably one of the worst things you could do.
But I mean, you're exactly right. It's communication across, your social icons or your social profiles need to look the same, and then PowerPoint. Oh man, a lot of people don't seem to understand that. I know that PowerPoint is a great tool, but that doesn't mean you need to write every slide. Numerous, we as part of our job, we do work on some nice, nice glamorous work, and there's always the PowerPoint template, and we generally go back with a page, and it has maybe 6 bullet points on it in a headline. We're like, right, that's much information that someone can take in at one time while you're talking to them. Remember, you're talking, so you talk and you explain a bit more that's on the page. It's purely there to help the viewer in a meeting. People learn in different ways.
And it's just adding that value to what you're saying.
So it's trying to get that message down. So people don't fall asleep when you're giving them a PowerPoint presentation. But B, it's not. I don't think it's a PowerPoint presentation. I think that's the part that's wrong. Even if you're using PowerPoint as a presentation, and it's your job as the presenter to make it interesting and really to the point, because people have extremely low attention spans these days.
Yeah, actually, that was something that really struck me. I remember we were both at TVC Group in London together, and that became a part of the Economist group. And I remember when one of the guys from the mothership came over, and they'd said, we've got this rule, it's the 3-slide rule. And literally we do a whole presentation with 3 slides. Yet I'm looking at some of the techniques that are being used now because of that short attention span. And it's literally a visual representation on screen. It can be an image, a word, or whatever. And you're using it, and they're clicking through them, and there's a huge number of them. But of course, it's the words that are the constant, and the image is just supporting the words. And I hate it, and I'm sure you're the same with this, when people read word for word what's on screen. Nothing less.
You've probably heard of Kucharz. Is that so? 20 slides, 20 seconds a slide, and that is one of the most dynamic ways I've seen to make a presentation. Because each slide moves every 20 seconds. And I've heard there's been talks on toilet signs in Japan. A guy did a talk in Christchurch recently, and it was very funny, down to just someone's 20 photos from their Instagram feed of food.
Oh, wow.
But it's a platform for anyone can learn to present, and because it's over pretty quick, it can be painful, but over, or could be brilliant as well. It just gives people practice and a way to keep communicating.
How have you found, just talking marketplaces, I've gone from, the same place as you in London, big, huge city with millions and millions of people. I'm now in a town of, about 300,000 people, a province of 1 million and a bit, 1.5 million people. You're in New Zealand with 4 million total. How have you found, you've said that there's maybe a little bit more resistance to certain technologies and certain things, but how have you found people getting along with acceptance of different ways of working? Because when I came over here, there are some things that are different. And actually, I've come here and found there's a lot of things that are, dare I say it, slightly better. There are healthier ways of thinking. It's not the instant this, that, and the other. And that's across the board in London. It's pressure, pressure, go, go, go. And I find that the quality of what I'm doing now is significantly better. And I'm probably happier with what I'm doing.
So you've just about summed it up there, Dan. In London, there are a lot more, it's just bigger cities and larger processes around a project. So if a budget of a project is in London was a lot more, say it's $1 million, for example, therefore there are a lot more jobs on the line. So therefore, there are a lot more sign-off processes and more people up the chain you need to sell a piece of work to, which means a lot of times you get lost in process. So as you present up the chain, if you will, each time a part of the project gets slightly knocked off. You're still defending it as a designer, as a creative, but it gets harder to keep it as one whole piece. So you say you get to the end of the chain and you've predicted it well, but it's 80% of what you wanted. So that means you've lost part of it. Whereas in New Zealand, luckily, and sometimes it's not as luckily, we are generally presenting straight away to the person who signs it off. So we present to the head of marketing, and a lot of times there's only 2 people in the marketing team. It might be a big organization, but that's just New Zealand size. Whereas in London, there might be 30 people in that team. And to present to the top person, that's your last presentation after 6 months. Whereas here, you're presenting to head of marketing or even the CEO for sign off, generally 3 weeks after you've started the project. And most of the time, you probably know them or know their brother or sister. So there's a really nice synergy in terms of you get direct feedback from the person who either commissioned the work or ultimately signs it off. There are plus, there are good and bad sides to everything, but generally what it does mean is work is accepted faster. And also here we generally can produce work that sometimes is has a little bit more risk attached, because the margin for error or the negative outcome, so if something was to go wrong, can be litigated pretty fast. So we could, if it was say social media, we can generally update it faster because the sign off is shorter. And then also we do quite a lot of pro bono or kind of subsidised work for charities or for events. So we recently did some really nice work for TEDx in Christchurch. So TEDx Christchurch, it was all based around the questioning and thinking again. So with that, we worked with the head of TEDx Christchurch directly. And luckily she was in office around the corner, so she'd pop down and would have the whole campaign pinned up on the wall. And we'd say, this is what we're doing, this is where we're heading. It was very collaborative. He said she'd just walk in and say, love it, leave you guys to it and just walk away. And for us, that's like when you're in a pressure cooker, getting that piece of work to go live the next day, because that's the type of event it is. That's when having that beautiful client relationship really helps.
Do you think, from a creative point of view, and you can disagree with me if you want, do you think that working in a more agile environment where things can be changed quicker, where people know that there's a less of a risk profile, where it's not been approved by 150 people and then 150 further people further down the food chain who have no relevance and no place in that process and sign off, where there's more creativity, or it can be sharper? Because if there's one thing from things like the ad awards, the design awards, the international ones, New Zealand always does really well.
So part of that is New Zealand, I guess New Zealand attitude. We generally just knuckle down and do things, which is why I know in London, especially, New Zealanders always liked or favoured around the office place, because we come in, do the job, don't try not to get too involved in any of the politics around it, and then we would generally go down to the pub as well. But
which incidentally was the last place that I saw you.
It was, yes. Mind you, that was my leaving. It was my leaving drinks, but you had your.
In fairness, I came back for that.
Yes, which is very good. So we are agile. The New Zealand attitude, we kind of call it the number 8 wire, which is this wire that we use for fencing, but we use it for everything else, as well as duct tape. So a roll of, do you know duct tape?
Yep.
So we use that to fix the roof, the fence, the kettle. It's not boiling, but a duct tape around it. So we're generally out there just, getting on and making things happen. Whether it's a good result or bad result doesn't always matter. It's more just about doing something. And that's the same in design, it's the same in product design, it's the same in typography. And that's why we do really well international design awards, because we test the work. We sometimes we don't. We just actually go, it looks good, and let's just make it happen. And the clients, pardon me, we have, say, closer relationships because of the barrier of sign off is less. So the work can get out there and see the light of day, and that's the big thing. There's so much good work in London, and this was especially at TVC, that never saw the light of day for numerous reasons. And there's the same in New Zealand, but there's a lot more of it in London that doesn't get out there, so it doesn't get the chance to be put into awards. And
I saw so many either mood boards or bits of designs that at the back of your desk area. And it's like, why has this not gone anywhere? It's awesome stuff, but you know, the classic long sign-off process. I'm just on, is it Behance? Is that how you say it?
Yep, Behance is the one, yes.
So I'm just having a look at it. Can I just put a link to that on here?
Yep.
There we go. So when people watch this back, and Oliver, who's watching at the moment, thank you for tuning in. When people watch this back, they've got a link directly to it. I'm just looking through there. It's got a number of lists of awards on the left, and I'm not going to embarrass you, but
thanks,
man, that's an awesome list, And just looking down the let's say folders, when I look at when I look in the yellow pages, or I look them up on my SAS 411 or online for someone, and I look for a graphic designer, I know that inevitably I'm going to get, and including the people I work with, they're very good and they do awesome work. But there's something about what you do which is beyond that graphic design thing. And I'm not blowing smoke up you, because you don't deserve it, frankly. You're all the way over in New Zealand. I'm kidding. But just looking at some of your work on here, it's where does that inspiration come from when it's a brand or an organization going, we want something that's identity? Did they go, we don't care about practical, we just want identity and vision? How do you put on paper vision? That's always something I've struggled with.
Yeah. It's like, it's quite a hard, well, I'll explain this. So a client comes to us with a problem or a challenge, basically, and this goes back to the first question again. So we, as graphic designers, are problem solvers. So there's a problem, and it's generally solved visually, but we also are quite good at solving business problems as well. So a client needs to make more money, needs to sell more plants at their garden centre, for example. So that might be the challenge. They come to, they come with us and say, hey, we want to sell more plants. But how do you do that? Is it advertising? Is it a EU logo? What is it? So a lot of times it starts with conversation with the clients, and then we go away and we have a conversation internally, and we talk. And this happened at TVC. This happens all around the world. Have a conversation, and from that conversation, we kind of say, well, hey, what is the real problem? And actually, it might be that they need to sell more plants, but when we went to their building, their actual buildings, or the places where they sell the plants, they don't actually look that good. So it actually comes down to the environment. So we go, hey, you actually need to redesign your buildings, you need to paint them. So for this project, we got them to use an interior designer. They increase what the buildings look like, so they're a lot more like the products were put in the right place so they could actually be sold rather than on the floor and dirty. We then devised a series of TV ads, which was where we came up with a character, a little girl who walked through this world it was called the Odorings world. So she went through this world interacting with the plants, and made this whole world, which is when you go into a garden centre, come alive. And then all of these activities meant that actually the original problem, which was to sell more plants, was taken care of quite easily, because you knew who they were. The customer experience when you went there was a lot better. But we would have never got there without actually asking questions and going and visiting them and finding out more about them. So a lot of the work we do is solving problems. And at the start, we don't, the client, as I said, could say we want a new logo, and it ends up actually we design them a book because it's actually they need that to talk to their clients rather than the logo. There's nothing wrong with their logo. But that process is quite a long process, and sometimes it can be quick because you hit the nail on the head first time. Other times it can take months and months, and you might never get there, but it's a process. Yeah.
In what I do, I work in a field of content marketing effectively.
Yeah.
And it's a banded around phrase, hey, I'm a content marketer, and everyone's a content marketer. When you look at content, and you've said it really well there, you've gone from the visual merchandising and how the stock looked for that person, and then you've told a bigger story through content rather than saying, hey, come here, buy something.
Yeah.
Have advertising agencies there changed from a traditional model of, hi, here we go, here's a design, run an advert, you'll get a result of X, to, hi, let's tell your story, and that will then convert hearts and minds to get X. Has that happened there? Because that's really happening here.
Has it happened in New Zealand, or sorry, was that happening over?
Yeah, it's happened here. It's been a slow progress because we still have some very traditional ad agencies. But has it happened there in New Zealand?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, the U model is there now. There aren't in New Zealand. They're not really called advertising agencies as much. It's communication agency, because now it's about solving not just advertising. Because advertising traditionally was where, as you said, you come in, we'll give you a TV ad, a couple of newspaper ads, we'll run it nationally, we'll add some social media on now. So now it's actually everything. So it's social media, it's advertising, it's any of those touch points or communication channels that the client needs, or we say the best channels to market based on their original problem. So that's why now in New Zealand they're not called advertising agencies as much. A lot of times they're actually called partners, so creative partners. So the U model, or the trend at the moment, is that you partner with your client, which is quite different. So it doesn't feel like, so where you are being paid, but it's more of a, it's not we're sitting across the table from each other. We're sitting side by side on the same side of the table, taking them with us on a journey, or vice versa. So therefore, what you become is the right hand man or woman, and you become embedded with that with the client you're doing work for. And sometimes you actually take over some seats in their office, so you become like an in-house marketing team, but with an out-of-house kind of remit. So as in, you don't get stifled by the in-house part, but it means you've got a closer link. So generally that leads to better work with higher results, faster, more efficiently. So therefore the client gets better return on investment, which means they ideally have more money to spend with us, which means we can do more interesting, more exciting work, rather than spending half the budget on just in meetings and sign off, which I'd rather be doing nice design, advertising, getting better results for them than
there's I couldn't agree more. There's a lot to be said about modern partner organizations and creative partners. And you say about that thing about being on the same side as the desk there, metaphorically and often physically. To the point that I'm sure you've gone into the design of your office, and when you're communicating with your clients, it's all as a part of how you work. All modern agencies, bar none so far that I've asked this question of, have done the following. Do you have a bare red brick wall to look stylish? Because every creative agency that I know has one of them.
Okay. No, we don't. So we have a beautiful. So there's an earthquake in Christchurch in 2011, which destroyed a lot of the inner city. It destroyed Strategies, which is the agency I work for, destroyed their old custom-built office or studio. So they found an old pub, which was built in 1877, and retrofitted the pub. Got proper steel beams, everything. So in earthquakes now, the building moves a bit, but it's very, very safe. And so the office has been fitted out, and it looks amazing. We don't have a red brick wall. We have beautiful. It's slightly Swedish style. Okay. I can post a link, or if you go to strategy.co.nz, I can find it for you. And it's beautifully designed. So our space is custom built. It's got special black sound absorbance pads on the roof. So therefore the sound, we play lots of music, the sound is absorbed in the right way. Mm-hmm. We have big glass doors that slide in and out to create different spaces. Custom built kitchen, which turns into a bar. And then we've also got the traditional table tennis table, which is the office, kind of the boardroom. And then my favorite part is we have a massive wall, probably 2 or 3 meters long, which is like a pin wall. Mm-hmm. So every project we do, every big project, we pin all the designs up on the wall. We stand back and then we go, okay, then you can see what I call the big picture and go, that's working, that's not. And we start to connect the dots and find out design wise and visually where we need to either do more work or where we need to actually stop and work on it. And then as the project progresses, we can just pin up more printouts over the old work, and we can flip them up and down, and it starts to build a picture of the brand, or as I said before, the communication challenge. Pardon me. And then we can see where it's heading. So those parts of the building have been designed with purpose. You also come up a black, very dark hallway up these stairs, because it's an old pub. So you come up these stairs with music playing, open this black door, and then suddenly you're in the reception area of our studio, which has basically one wall, which is a massive design library. So 200 books, old design advertising books, and then there's a kind of stack of awards. But the idea is that we think designers should think, and the easiest way to think is not on the computer. So you can go and grab a design book, you can sit down and read and think about the problem in front of you. So it's all about curating those spaces. So therefore, when the client comes in, they've gone from this dark area into a light, open studio, and suddenly they're like, right, I'm here to do business and to talk to these creators, rather than just opening a door and straight in. There's no journey. So their head might still be back in the office going, God, I've got to do 5 things when I get back, and how I'm going to meet them. So therefore, when in a meeting with us, they're already stressed about something else, and we need them to be relaxed and ready to talk through whatever it is that we can do for them.
Now, the title of this blab, and if you've just joined us on Blab, or you're listening to the podcast, is CafeSoCo, thanks to Martin Charlton Communications. This title is How to Use Graphic Design to Create Identity. I think you've just given the perfect example of your ethos as an organization, using design and graphic design to really get people into the mindset of who you are, how you work, and why you do things.
Yeah. And then I think it's correct. It's not like the title should be how to use design to create identities or to solve challenges, because design is in many different ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one of the things that if people look you up on the Google, they'll find out is this, epic event that you put on called Comic Sans for Cancer.
Yes.
When you first spoke to me in London about that, I've got an event coming up, and it's going to be good. And we're doing a lot of work. Just give a bit of a background of how did Comic Sans for Cancer come along, and why did you do it? The most important reason, why?
Okay, so I'll do the how, then the why. So the how was I was doing a course. It's called Landmark Forum. So Landmark is a how would you put it? It's I guess, a self-development course, which takes you through a series of different like kind of challenges personally and career-wise, and makes you think about certain things and gives you a structure to do things and to look at things in a different way. So I was doing this course, and part of the course was you had to do a project. And I'd always had, well, for the last kind of 6 months, I had this idea about I should do something with Comic Sans. I don't know why. I just noticed that no one was, and it was going to be its 20th anniversary. So the original idea I had was I was going to redesign Comic Sans to be a serif font, and which is to the uneducated people unknown, it's a font which has feet basically, and Comic Sans is a very cartoony font. As I was thinking of doing this, I then found out an Australian guy who had done it and done it quite well, and it was all over the blogs. So I thought, I can't redesign Comic Sans. And then while doing this course, I thought, well, actually, let's just do something. Let's celebrate Comic Sans' 20th anniversary. So I thought Comic Sans, cancer is something everyone cares about. I personally have had a few friends and for a few friends' parents and things like that die recently through cancer. Just before I put this event on, so it felt like it was right to do. So the idea was Comic Sans for cancer. Initially, it was just going to be maybe 20 posters at a pub, and I thought maybe we'd get $1,000 and that'd be it. Oh, sorry, 500 New Zealand dollars, 500 pounds. And then through this course, it told me to think big, but also to give the project away, to get other people involved. And we all have egos, and we all have things we like to do, and we all like to control things. And I have a certain way I like things to go, and sometimes that can be hard. But they said you've got to give it away, so I just rang up this lady I met once. No, I actually never met her before, and said, "Hey, this is my idea. Would you like to be involved?" And she said, "Yep, this idea is amazing." Her name was Jenny Phelan. Luckily for me, and luckily for Comic Sans for Cancer, she knows a lot of people, and she's very good at taking an idea and helping to make it big. So me and her, and then another friend, Renee, who you know as well, Dan. I got Renee involved as well, and the three of us took it from a small idea to a big idea. We then knew that we had to get a lot of big famous designers involved, because when you get the famous guys involved, everyone jumps on the bandwagon. So through our friends and different people, we had a lot of big designers, Mash Creative, people from the partners, from Pentagram, all the way to SoCo Design, and then different agencies around the world got involved, and they all designed posters. But then where it really took off was on Twitter, where design curators and things like that, the DNAD talked about it. So suddenly we had a lot of interest from around the world. I think over 500 designers submitted, and we showed over 100 posters in London. But the key was taking something like cancer, which everyone knows about, taking something like Comic Sans, which everyone knows about, putting them together, because straight away everyone hates Comic Sans, and that's the best bit, because the design blogs, everyone's like, this is just insane, what a bad idea, I can't believe someone's doing this. And as soon as people say that, you know you've done it.
Yeah.
Nothing better than people dissing the idea and getting fired up about it. And there was some beautiful designs made, and the main thing was it got people talking about Comic Sans again and celebrating its 20th anniversary. Vincent Conair, the man we all love, who created Comic Sans, I emailed him and said, "Mate, this is what we're doing." Expecting him to say, "I hate you because I don't want to talk about it." This is when I actually found out he loves the Comic Sans in terms of he loves that everyone hates it. He never designed it to be used the way it was, and he kind of enjoys all the banter around it. So he rocked up to the exhibition. Me and him are now good friends, and he does a lot of talking about it. So he is also a big advocate for cancer research, so he was more than happy to sign every one of the 500 books. Wow. And we also asked him, it says on the front page, I don't know how much we can see here, I'll try my best. It says, "This is all my fault. signed Vincent Cornier. So he's a man with a sense of humour. But yeah, I think it was a great example of a small idea or a little idea or a big idea, which amplified the right way through content marketing and through different media can take off. But to me, I think a good idea in the right place will always take off. You've just got to put the right people around it. So, yep, I'm very, very proud of that project, and it's opened many, many doors for myself and everyone involved. So you give something, put something in, you give something away. It always can come back to you in many, many different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, and we celebrate the success that you have with that, and the message that you put out there, and all the good work that was done from it. Do you, as I do, when you're going past the pharmacist's office or you're at the doctor's, this is where they tend to use Comic Sans because someone on reception goes, "We're just going to make a quick sign. Someone, the toilet's out of office or out of order. Can you just do a sign?" And they always Comic Sans. Why? But then every time I see it, I think of you and this campaign. So everything's got that.
And that's that's the best outtake now. Is I still get emails. I still get a lot of emails from different friends. I have a lot of friends who aren't designers. Tell truth, most of my friends, especially here, are not graphic designers, which is in a way quite nice. And every time someone sees Comic Sans or uses it, they either email me or see me and just go, "Well, I thought of you." And I'm like, "Well, that's good, but you actually should have thought of cancer." The best bit is my wife, who knows a little bit about typefaces now, because I read typeface books in bed sometimes. And she's like, "That's Comic Sans." And I'm like, "Yep." And she's like, "Oh my God." So, it's good. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
When you're a designer and you're looking for inspiration and you're working on behalf of a brand, when we look at storytelling through digital medium or media relations or whatever it is, often we look at different markets because it's easier to get inspiration and then see how that can apply, or that genome of an idea can apply then further down the line, developed for your client.
Yeah.
From the point of visual marketing and graphic design, is there more of a risk that things just get plagiarized and you've seen your work somewhere else, or such a tiny variation of it and you've gone, "Come on, people"?
I mean, plagiarism exists for many, say hundreds of years. It's just now it's with things like Behance and the internet, it's so much harder to be original because a lot of ideas have already been done. So generally we'll do a piece of work, and I'll try not to look too much on the internet. So you come up with an idea to do it, but if we look hard enough, we're going to find the same idea somewhere else. Generally speaking, it's harder to be original. You can be original and do it in a slightly way, but it's just because if plagiarism is seeing something and then being influenced by it, then we plagiarize every day, and we all do it unknowingly because you can't, even using a font a certain way. It's because I've seen it 6 months ago and I've gone, "Oh, that's really good," and it's gone into my head, and then I've just forgotten about it, and then a brief's come in and I thought, "Hey, actually, I remember how that font was used. That'd be really suited this client." And that's not plagiarism because we're using it in a different way.
Absolutely, the application's
different. Plagiarism on a letter in the part I wouldn't like to see, and I hope I've never done it. I could have without knowing, is when we've taken, had that design right next to us, done it the same for the same market or the same, say it's an accountancy firm, and we've done it the same as that one. That's not on, because we're not doing our job. We're just copying. Taking a color from this brand, a typeface from this brand, maybe the way they've treated the logo, so as in it's they've used it really large, for example, in at the top of that brand, taking those elements and then remixing them. So music, perfect example. Now a lot of music has different parts. You know, Ed Sheeran might be in, so therefore Justin Bieber sounds a bit more like Ed Sheeran. Is that plagiarism? It's plagiarism if he uses the exactly the same riff with the same. So it's a bit like that, and music's probably a really good example because taking parts that work somewhere else and combining them is the kind of is the way ahead. But on the other hand, and I know a lot of very good designers who have a lot of work on things like Behance, and their work is copied everywhere. In the end, you've just got to go, actually, it's a compliment. It's the best compliment. And to have work, it does make you a bit angry, but what can you do? Email them, tell them.
Yeah.
It's not really made much difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's just part of the industry, but the idea is that you shouldn't copy. Is no way. But you should be influenced completely.
Have you found that? And I don't know if this is really a particularly great question. Have you found that the way that people want to go into this big data thing and look at numbers coming back, that can detract from going, hold on, this is selling, this imagery or this look and feel and how it appeals to the heart can't always be measured in data. Yeah.
So all the best work I've done, I've been involved in or seen done, has not been researched, has not had a lot of data thrown around it. It's just been an idea or a thought or an emotional connection gone, hey, I really like that typeface on that image, or that image really works for me or really works for the creative director that I've been working with at the time. And then it's just been sold. The creative director or the account manager or myself or whoever's sold that piece of work has just convinced the client that this is the best thing. And the idea is that if you're great, you can convince someone that there's only one idea, one way to do it, and this is the way, and this is the best way. There's no other way. And there is, of course, there's a million ways to do something, but at this current point in time, that is the best way. Comic Sans for Cancer was the best way to do that at that point in time. And the 2012 identity for the Olympics in London with the kind of crazy typeface, that was the best way at that time. They convinced them. So of course there's many other ways, but it's that point in time, and none of that has had a lot of data. I mean, the Olympic stuff might have, but most of the time it's a feeling, an emotional connection, and that's it. And the data it's not going to change anything. Generally, research will tell you, it will make you do what's been done before, because people cannot assess something they've never seen, or if it's too edgy, or they want things they're used to. So you need a good client and you need a risk.
That's actually a really good point, because I remember all the controversy around the time of the London 2012 logo, how the media, and we're not going to blame the media because media service is a really essential thing, but they had gone out to people and said, hey, design your own logo. And all these newspapers from the Sun, the Mirror, the whoever were filling out pages and pages and web pages of all these potential logos. And then the London 2012 logo came out. Universally, it was detested, and people mocked it and then made some really inappropriate artwork as a result of it. But it wasn't long until that brand, that look and feel, and the explanation all keyed together, it made sense. And suddenly people are saying this is an iconic brand. And it's it suits it. Before I left the UK, which is around about a year ago, before I left the UK, one of the last places I went to was the Olympic Park, just to have a walk around with family. And I tell you what, seeing the London 2012 branding there, it worked. And I was one of the first to hate it.
That's a perfect example of, the best thing for them at the start, and it would have been hard being the designers, was that everyone was talking about it. And they would have talked about it anyway, but they talked about it a bit more because it was, at that point in time, it was pushing what people were used to. And you had got it right before as well, because where it really came together was the work, I think it was the Partners or Pentagram did on the signage. So that's where the brand went from being a logo to actually being the environment and how the space when you went to the Olympics worked. And the signage was really good because when you got there, you knew exactly where to go. Then you got into the stadium and saw how the 2012 worked with everything else. And that was it. I mean, even down to the tickets, it was a beautiful piece of work. But it had to go on that journey and be hated. And it would have been very hard being designers because everyone's talking about it. But they stuck to it in the signage and the tickets and the way it came together, the motion. There was beautiful motion graphics around it too. And that was like those guys now can say, hey, I worked on a legacy project, a project which that's going to be in design archives. It's like you're lucky if you get one of those in your lifetime. So
absolutely.
Very well.
As we approach the last 5 minutes, I just want to ask you, what do you see for the future of visual communications? How are we as people enabling brands and individuals to connect to other individuals? How are things going to change? Facebook today in Adweek, I was reading that they're going to prioritize live video over an awful lot of other content that's going on there because they've seen the success of Periscope and Blab and these other formats. But obviously written content and design content is still key to that because Facebook isn't the be all and end all. What's the future hold, do you think?
I think it's still all going to be about the ideas and the way they're communicated and the emotional connection. It's just the platforms or the channels will keep changing. And that's where the key is to keep up with them and make sure, the challenges you're solving or the solutions you're providing are in these new spaces. A lot of it will be technology driven. There's going to be more artificial intelligence. There's going to be a big push for social in terms of kind of charitable giving, but also the way we use resources. So less printing of things and less waste. That's going to be a big way ahead. But also it's going to be how those ideas cut through the different channels and talk to people. I mean, now we're in different sides of the world, talking to each other, being listened to by a select few people at the moment, which have heard about in many different ways. So that's one of the great things. And the audiences that brands talk to and we talk to as individuals is now everywhere from your neighbour to someone in a remote fishing village in the middle of, in the coast of Canada, or, even you go to Africa. I remember Africa, and over there, they're struggling for certain things, but you walk past what looks like a water tanker and it's actually 20 people around a cell phone charger. They've all got cell phones charging them. It's like they don't have much else and they've got a cell phone. So you can talk directly to them. And so it's going to be a slightly weird landscape. But I kind of hope there's more where we actually think about how we use resources and use them for better. And that's kind of part of it.
What do you guys think of the popularization of page builders' influence on the graphic design profession from Serve Mac? Is that? Sorry if I've got that wrong. What do you think, Chris?
So I wonder, does that mean Squarespace and then more like web design built platforms?
Or is it from, and maybe you can answer that just in text as a response on that one, or is it popular page builders influence? Yes. So Squarespace and templated. Yes.
Okay, so that's great. We were talking about this the other day. So I think there's a perfect place for Squarespace. For me, it's kind of artists, designers, small businesses, people that don't have the bigger budgets for say custom built websites. Squarespace have some lovely templates. I've used it to build a few websites. I think they're really good if used the correct way. There are certain things I know I found a few troubles myself with just technical things, which it took me a while to figure out how to fix some of them. But generally, I think they're really good, and I recommend them. We recommend them to certain clients. If they want custom build and more backing, then use a different way. But definitely, it's they're well designed and robust, and I highly recommend them.
I think that the thing that people need to remember with sites and services like this is that the templates have been designed, they've been used in multiple places, they've been tested, they know from data that they're resonating. And if you're a one-man band, a mom and pop shop, or you know, just a couple of people in an office or working out of you know, a garage somewhere, to be able to have paid for that level of research and design when you're a startup, it is verging on impossible. But then you can scale from there when you're, you know, doing better, when you've got greater income, and you can evolve the story.
And the price, I mean, it's really, I think, was it $30? We built the Comic Sans one on Squarespace because it was all done for free. We had no money. And that was perfect, and that did the job, and it looked professional at the time, and it did what it needed to. And the Squarespace templates at the moment, they're responsive, so, you know, they work on mobile. And to build a responsive site at the moment for a brand not using Squarespace, it's quite a bit of money, which a lot of brands don't have. So if they can invest that money in building the brand, and as you said, Dan, once that brand is built and they've got, say, business cards, and they've got, you know, their social sorted, then suddenly they can then reinvest in the website, which is better than not having a website. So therefore someone goes to find you and you don't exist in the, you know, the current where we are, where if you're not on the internet, then you don't exist, that type of world. So yeah, I think it's great.
Well, Chris, time has beaten us. That is one whole from Canada to New Zealand. Chris, for people to find out more and find out where to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
So if you go to my Behance page, or go to chrisflack.com, you can send me a message via Behance. You can also look me up on LinkedIn as well, and I'm happy if you want to send me messages via LinkedIn as well.
No, sorry, I think I coughed then. I went to turn it to 0, and I think I turned it up instead. So, no, that wasn't any statement about you giving your contact details. Please do. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm at Dan Gold Media on Twitter. You can get me via WeTellYourStories.ca. The links to mine and Chris's are actually in the live chat section of Lab. This will be available as a podcast on CafeSoCo. You can search for that on iTunes. Chris Flack from New Zealand. It's been a long time, my friend, but thank you so much. Just as a health check on this one, I do have to say the following. Views and opinions expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of Martin Charlton Communications and other associated individuals and organizations. ENOE 2016. Chris, thank you so much.
Mr. Gold, pleasure.
Thank you.
See you later.